What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again for episode 2 of season 2. That's almost hard to say. I'm here with my buddy Will Batt, a really good grower, a really good guy. You know, I've known him for about a year now, and wanted to bring him on the show. This is actually something we've been trying to work on for a minute.
We've been talking about this for a little while.
Yeah.
I'm a busy man. You're a busy man, but we finally found a day to get in here.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of
just stoked to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad. So welcome to the show and everything. Before we move on, I want to just give a shout out to the sponsor of the show today, Quality Customs. They're going to be the sponsor all month. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode and all month. Quality Packaging, they're here for your packaging needs. They're in compliance, great communications, many packaging prices, totally custom and on time. Contact Josh Villegas for business inquiries or estimates. You can also email them at koalatpackaging with a K, customs, 210@gmail.com. All right, thank you so much. Anyway, we're going to move on and we're going to talk a little about Will Batt, man. So if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself to the audience and everything? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Chad. So my name's Will Batt. I'm on the Canacribs consulting team under the Growers House umbrella. And so what I'm doing out here in New Mexico is I'm a horticulture consultant for cannabis productions here in the state, also in a few other states throughout the U.S., really just here to make sure that, clients of ours, people that we're working with are successful, that are doing well. Sometimes I get in with people at the early stage of, facilities and blueprints. And we talk about, speccing the right equipment so that they're not purchasing things twice. Oftentimes I get into grow facilities where, they've got twice the amount of dehumidifiers or they've purchased the wrong equipment and now can't return it.
So dehus are expensive. If
you guys don't know. Yes. A lot of grow equipment is expensive. A lot of people typically get a little afraid of the price tag once it comes to, building out the facility. But of course, great cost, but great reward.
100%.
Yeah, and then also just working with them through the grow process of kind of building their SOPs out, connecting people with staff. I work with a lot of different cultivations out here, so always trying to get the right people in the right fits. And also helping people out with a lot of issues. As we all know, cultivating cannabis is not an easy game at commercial scale. There's a multitude of things that can go wrong. So it's fun to be the guy that people call when things go wrong. And at the end of the day, it's not my problem when I go to sleep at night. So but I am coming from running some big production facilities back east. Really cut my teeth in Maine and the decriminalized market out there. Started with a few kind of smaller to mid-sized productions, and then was running a big, about 100,000 square foot facility outside of Philadelphia. And so, that was where, it was the 5 a.m. calls, white knuckling on the highway to get down to the facility when the HVAC fails. And don't miss that. But it's a lot of fun to be, be the assistant that's working with the cultivators out here to really make sure that people are as successful as they can be.
Dope.
But, the other big piece is, if people aren't familiar with Canacribs, we're a big media channel in the cannabis space. And so try to use that platform to really, bolster our partners and bolster the people that we work with, do what we can to support. But it's, it's fun to wear a lot of different hats in the industry.
Yeah, you wear many.
Yes. Well, this one today, but
yes. Could you tell us a little about Canacribs? That's something that I'm sure some of the audience, may or may not know about. I mean, I know the Canacribs. I've met, all of you guys, great dudes. You guys are doing great things, putting people out there and get more grows the notoriety that they deserve.
Totally.
The amazing grows, putting out amazing product.
Yeah, man. It moves in a few different angles. It's we use the platform, like I said, to really show off some of our partners and people that we really enjoy, that are trendsetters, coming up with new interesting methods of cultivation in the industry, utilizing new technologies, and sometimes just a business with a really cool story. There's a lot of us out here, and everybody's got an interesting story to tell. So it's always fun to give them the platform to really put that message out to the people.
Dope.
But through Canacribs, we also have our consulting team. So like I said, we help people design facilities, create business models, dial in their cultivation SOPs, and then continue to operate at the highest level possible. Because we work with many different cultivators. I mean, myself, I think I've been in about 80, 100 cultivation facilities.
Holy wow.
So it's you learn a lot from other people's mistakes and the interesting things that other people, put together, and new little strategies.
Yeah, something you never thought of before. You're like, oh, I never thought of that before.
Exactly. Yeah, and then Canna Cribs is really powered by Growers House Agricultural Solutions.
Okay.
Where we provide equipment, we provide all the build out supplies, all the consumables for people to operate, but really try to be a little bit more of like a solutions based company, and that's why they have people like myself here, cultivators on staff, to support the people that we work with. We don't want to just sell you something. We want to make sure that you're successful with it.
100%. Because like, instead of just here's the equipment, go have fun. It's like, here's the equipment. We're gonna help you out. Make sure you guys are doing it right, and that's great because New Mexico, we have a lot of potential.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah, a lot of potential here. A lot of great growers. They just need a lot of help because we all started in a closet. We all started from the black market, and don't get me wrong. There's a few who didn't. They had a couple bigger ops. But for the most part, we started in the closet, and we have to scale up. And scaling up, that's a whole different ballgame. Like night and day.
You nailed it, man. You nailed it. Growing 4 plants and growing 4,000 plants is a very, very big difference.
The math is
exactly. And we all love to be able to spend that individual time and care and attention on each plant. But once we get to scale, it's we got to operate like a business, like any other industry. And find creative ways to keep our cost of production low, and keep the best quality product possible to really make gains.
100%. Yeah, and we'll talk more about growing and everything, because this episode is actually about growing. I just wanted to talk about Will Batt, all the cool stuff that you do and everything. Because you do a lot in the industry, man. Like, we always cross paths at some point. We're just like, hey, what are you doing?
I feel like the thing that like you and I do, Chad, is like we're plugged in with a lot of different people. We're plugged in with a lot of different cultivations, manufacturers, dispensaries, and it's like a thing that I never thought I'd be doing as much as I do is just connecting partners. It's all right, you've got a service, you've got a need, let's put you guys together. And that's been a really, really fun piece, especially in New Mexico here, where it is such a tight industry. There's not the same sense of competition. Of course, there's always, always going to be some competition, but there's a lot more collaboration out here. And so it's, it's really fun to put, the right people together to get solutions across.
100%. So which one do you like better? Do you like the growing side? Do you like more of the marketing, sales kind of?
I like the growing side.
I went like a true grower. Spoken as a true grower.
I grew up on farms, man. I went to school for horticulture and botany. I love plants.
Well, let's talk more about that. Let's talk about your growing experience then.
Totally.
So give us your background on it. Where did it come from?
Well, let's see. It started with, my mother, when I was a little kid, had us going to this biodynamic farm down the road. And so from kind of rooting around in the soil there and, helping the farmers out and always, being interested in, how they're growing this food and how they're growing these products. That's what really kind of drove this passion in me from an early age. Continue to work on various farms and kind of woof around the world at some various spots, had some really, really fun experiences through that. And then, of course, age 13, 14, I think I smoked my first joint, and it was love at first joint. Ended up like working on it's like a nomadic intentional community, agricultural intentional community out in California. And then got poached by the local weed farms to go help them on their productions.
Nice.
And that was how I first started to really love cultivating cannabis. Took that back. I was going to college in Maine at this little liberal arts school, and kind of got taken under the wing by the lead botany professor. Was doing a lot of work in plant-based soil restoration called phytoremediation. So coming up with creative strategies to either hold contaminants in place in soil, or actually cleanse the soil with hyperaccumulating plants that can take up a lot of like heavy metals and various toxins. Exactly. Into their biomass. Did a 3-year-long project, was working in tandem with the EPA, pretty much ended up having all of my work thrown out at the end, and, feeling very dejected. And at the same time, I was kind of running a couple small farms for some collectives of caregivers up there at the time.
Cool.
And I was like, you know what? This is a lot more fun. This is a lot more engaging. I really like these people, and really kind of ran with that. So was running, a couple small indoor, outdoor, and then to a larger greenhouse production up in Maine. It it's addictive, man.
Yes.
It's hard work. I mean,
It is.
you're spending 6 to 7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days. I was hammocking in the woods in some of these properties sometimes when work had to get done.
Yeah.
But it's hard work, but it's like big rewards. There's I think the thing that's so interesting about cannabis in comparison with the growth of so many other horticultural crops is that there's still so much that we're learning.
Yeah.
We have such little actual research around cannabis, so few peer-reviewed papers that are just starting to come out now.
Yeah.
That it's an open frontier. I mean, we still have so much to discover with this plant and how to properly cultivate it and how to, create exactly what we're looking for within our plant and our grow environment.
Yeah, because we're still stabilizing the genetics, in this plant in general.
Yeah, and so then I moved. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and moved back south to follow a lady, as it goes. And she's a good one. She's still with me today. So,
cool. There you go. That's always a good story to hear.
I started working at this new startup outside of Philadelphia, which grew and grew and grew, and we became massive. And it was going from about 5,000 square feet of canopy to about like 35K was intense, you can say.
Yeah.
And going from that early startup culture of, not getting paid much and working your freaking ass off, to, we ended up getting purchased by one of the big MSOs.
Okay.
I'm not going to name any companies or names, but I'm not going to lie, man, the corporate side of it, I started to lose my love a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a challenge when you're dealing with your boss's boss.
Who doesn't know anything about cannabis?
Who doesn't know anything about cannabis and is somewhere at some vacation house in Aspen.
Mad just because he's looking at numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started getting a little frustrated. I loved my team. I loved what we're doing, but just that growth was challenging from the corporate standpoint. And I started looking for other options. Got in with the Cannacribs team. I'd been chatting with Nate for a little bit, and man, it was we really took off together. It was a really good fit. I've been really happy to be on their team. It's a great group of people, all very knowledgeable and really fun to work with. So it's reinvigorated me back into the cannabis scene, you could say. But it's been fun to really take all of the pieces that I've gleaned out there and bring it here to the New Mexico market. But I'll tell you what, man, I've learned a lot from the New Mexico cultivators too. We've got everything from the smallest, bootstrappiest little, podunk grow to some really sexy facilities out here. And also some cultivators that are, coming up with like interesting new strategies and, different ways to grow, because it can be challenging in New Mexico.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of humidity at all.
No, not at all.
It's like 1%.
Yes, just about. I mean, that was kind of my genesis story, I guess you could say.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I mean, I've actually myself have been kind of curious. I know you gave me a little background, but I never knew from the growing side, like the timeline and everything. And like I was like, wait, how did he get here?
It's a great question, man.
He just showed up one day. Hey, I'm Will Batt. I'm with Cannacribs.
Sometimes I wonder that myself.
But yeah, no, I appreciate, the way that you came into the industry. You're very respectful. There's certain people that come into the industry like, hey, I'm here to this and this. And we're like, who the hell are you?
There's a lot of egos in cannabis.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of egos. And there's no need for that. We all have the things that we can bring, the good, the bad, but it's like we touched on, there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
And anyone that thinks that they know everything, that's when you stop learning. And that's when you stop improving. So
yeah, when I was in interrogator school, my instructor, shout out to him, he gave me the best advice I have ever had from anyone. Oh, not anyone, but just job wise. He said, the day you learn everything about this job is the day you die. And, you can apply that to so many other jobs, especially cannabis, because we ourselves are still learning about the plant.
Exactly.
So I'm still going to learn, and things that I know now are probably not going to be the same later on down the road 10 years, because it used to be about THC, and then now it's just like, whoa, that's a gimmick.
That's a tough one, man, because unfortunately the way that there's still, I feel like we need a whole kind of consumer re-education.
I think so.
That.
I agree.
I'm sure you've talked about this quite a few times in your podcast.
The horse's ashes.
Oh yes. But I think any experienced cultivator or any experienced consumer will tell you that sometimes they get the highest off that like 14% strain that's dripping with terps. That
3%er.
yeah,
Oh
dude.
man,
And it's like, you know,
dirty and yummy.
yeah, and it's like we're just starting to uncover, you know, the synergistic effects of all of the hundreds of compounds in this this plant, this medicine. And you know, as we start to learn that, you know, I think we'll start to get a little bit more of that kind of education to the consumer.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because the consumer, you know, like right now is set. Okay, so the consumer is mixed. You know, you have a lot of the old school people. You know, have the old ways and this and that. Like, I used to smoke the leaves and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Sounds like my dad. Yeah.
Mine too. That's where it came from. So, but yeah, you have those consumers, and then you have like the newer ones. You have the bougie kids. You know, the high THC kids and everything. But now you have like the smaller group that's kind of figuring it out. You know, but I think as a whole, we do need, you know, consumer education. That's kind of what I try to do here on the podcast. You know, just make sure everyone's as educated as much as possible, from my knowledge.
Totally.
You know, to, you know, be the smartest consumer possible. You know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the one big piece for the consumers is like, talk to your bun tender. You know, what are you smoking on? What do you like? You know,
what's tasting good?
Exactly. And it's also like, you know, we all use the analogy of like, you don't buy wine for the alcohol percentage. You know, it's like, you know, what is the experience that you're looking for? What are the effects that you're looking for? Because, you know, for me, it's like smokability, flavor, of course, are, you know, probably top of my criteria, but it's like effects for me. You know, I love to like find the perfect daytime weed and the perfect nighttime weed. I got those two categories, and like I'm a happy man.
And I noticed that you didn't use the terminology, I guess old terminology now of indica sativa, because now it's so hybridized that it's really hard to pinpoint what is an indica and what is a sativa now. We have to really go off of the effects. You know, and to be honest, most of the time it's just a dude smoking it like, oh yeah, I feel like a uppity effect. Okay, sativa.
Dude, and that's where it's like, you know, we'll pull out, this is my hoagie breath. This is probably one of the heaviest like indica effects of any of the strains that I'm growing right now. But it's,
oh, let me get that.
That's funky.
Show it to the camera here. There we go.
But yeah, it's like one of the tallest, stretchiest strains that I've got, but it's the heaviest, most like what you would consider indica effects. And like you nailed it, man. It's like so many of the cultivars that we're growing are so heavily hybridized at this point that like you might have, you know, one indica characteristic, but one completely sativa characteristic in the same strain. So like we can use them as buckets to kind of like, you know, kind of point you more in the direction of what to expect. But we're all smoking hybrids these days, unless you got some funky old Hindu landrace, which I did just pop some Hindu Kush backcross seeds.
Ooh, okay. I can't wait to see that.
I'll bring you some cuts.
Heck yeah, and we'll talk more about the growing stuff here in a few minutes. But I want to ask you just a couple more questions because you know we keep going back to growing, and I'm like, damn it, I want to get to it.
We're gonna take 25 tangents on.
You and I, we
got problems.
We got some growing problems. You know, I got some female plant problems. So what do you feel, you know, that you like from New Mexico's market come from another market, or actually a couple other markets? You know, what are some things that you notice is different that we do?
You know, I touched on it earlier, man, but it's like there is a sense of camaraderie in New Mexico.
True.
You know, it's a smaller state, and you know, one person can connect you to 25 people. You know, there's a lot more friendships out here, and there's a lot more organizations that are bringing cultivators together.
True.
You know, shout out to the Southwest Cannabis Trade Association. Shout out to the New Mexico Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. You know, the work that they are doing is creating a platform for cultivators to come together, talk, collaborate, and also push, you know, a collective voice to legislators, you know, which is also a big thing that you are spearheading. So, you know, to have that kind of, you know, grassroots group movement is relatively rare from a lot of other industries. I mean, especially, man, like coming from the East Coast, you know, Maine decriminalized market, it was very similar. It was very much like, you know, lots of small cultivators all kind of supporting each other, getting together at these harvest fests where everybody would, you know, which we got out here too.
I was like, they
got a little crazy. But man, it's like, you know, once you get down to, you know, Philly, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, it's, you know, you've got high populations and you've got high interest for larger players to invest.
Okay.
And so, you know, like PA, for instance, I believe it was about $250,000 to enter a lottery to get your license. It was a pay-to-play scenario.
Yeah.
The only people that were getting licenses were millionaires,
yeah.
Because they had that capital to put up.
Yeah.
And it bred a much more competitive corporate environment, and it was quite stale.
Yeah.
And there weren't organizations and there weren't events to bring cultivators together. And it was, instead of that, it was, one company calling the CCD on the other company down the road. And that kind of bullshit, which that happens everywhere. There's always going to be, sour players, but no, it was definitely not, there was not the love that I see out here.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I love in New Mexico is it's, it goes both ways of having it be such an open market, but anyone can enter.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
It's very low cost of entry for individuals to get a license and to try to make their dream become a reality. Now, the unfortunate part of that is some people will fail.
Yeah. That's the reality.
Yeah. And especially as we're starting to see, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it in 2024, is there is going to be some overproduction issues.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of cultivations that are coming online. I see a lot of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of these massive outdoor farms that are flooding the market with very cheap products. So it's, it's the balance.
Yeah.
But I would still say, if it's up to me, like, having the open market where, anyone can enter. If you have a good business idea and a good way to push it and the right people behind you, you can be successful in this industry.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's a really special thing. And, this plant has done so much good, but it's also been so, it's been used to target, impoverished communities of color.
Yeah.
I feel like it's important to really give the people the power back within cannabis, and I see that here in New Mexico.
Me too. I think we're on a forefront, New Mexico, the way and route that we did it. We saw all these other states, the way they did it. It was too restrictive. We saw the issues it caused. It was too expensive. Even at the time, our medical cannabis program, it was $80,000 to $250,000 just to get your license.
Yeah.
So like we had the same issue as New York. Only the rich were able to get into the industry, and it was mostly people from out of state.
Yeah.
So the in-state people, just really missed out, due to that. And it's something that we fought for years, and we asked them and begged them to change it, but finally, I think they saw it and they're like, oh, okay, maybe we'll try a different route. And I'm really glad we went this route. And like you said, it's unfortunate that some people are going to lose and some people are going to go and leave the industry. However, that's the way the open free market goes.
Yep.
Like there's no, you get special treatment just because you decided to do this. It's like, no, you had an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's a difference. It's not you're entitled. It's like, you have the opportunity. If you do it right and you have a good product, good customer service, you push it right, you'll do well. There's a lot of people doing it well right now.
Yeah. And I think everybody's fearing the bottom,
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is what we've seen in every other state where there has been a market crash is that, yes, we will hit that bottom. The price of product will dip quite low.
Yeah.
But then it does come back up as some of the companies either scale back their production, or as we have some of these larger producers start to fail.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting because a lot of these legacy producers from the medical market, and they should be, they're a little scared right now because some of them have innovated and have found new ways to kind of rebrand and really bring out the best product and best message to the public. But some are just sitting on their laurels and they're used to being able to sell whatever they want. And there's a lot of good players out here producing some really good cannabis now. So it's, everybody always needs to be adapting, always needs to be coming up with creative ways to succeed. And once again, even if your business fails, if your micro license, your small business fails, like it's not hard to get back in with a different, rebranded, interesting idea, learn from your mistakes and find new ways to push forward.
I agree 100%. If you don't, you're just gonna be stuck and then you're gonna be mad at everyone else because I didn't make it because there's too many people. It's like, no, you just didn't make it because you didn't have either a good product. I mean, I'll say it for one. I used to have to almost shop at our Greenleaf here in town. Well, I haven't shopped in a very long time.
A lot of people have.
Yeah, and if you look at the sales, it shows.
Yeah.
You know, like, because I look at this regularly, and yeah, you know, like all the big guys and MSO ones, or even the call them the Dirty 30, their sales have plummeted, you know, significantly. Don't get me wrong, they're still making $100,000, you know, maybe $200,000, but it's nothing near to what they were making when we were medical, and even at the beginning of, you know, adult sales, when there was very few people, and, you know, the market was, you know, very cornered by, you know, freaking Slurricane.
Oh yeah,
yeah, you remember those days?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the ice cream cake and gelato now.
Oh yeah, you're right. I see ice cream cake everywhere. I can't.
Don't get me wrong, I like it.
That's like something different.
Yeah, exactly. We got thousands and thousands and thousands of cultivars to choose from.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many different, you know, genetics and stuff. But we'll actually talk more about that too. You know, maybe we
Totally.
keep talking. So what do you hope to change for New Mexico? What would actually improve us and even keep us on the spot light for a little longer? Because we know Texas, you know, they have a trigger law, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so to keep New Mexico in the spotlight, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens from the national level in terms of descheduling, interstate commerce, movement like that. But, you know, I could definitely see you know, the idea of interstate commerce scares me.
Me too.
It scares me a lot because, you know, the only reason that we've seen such quick forward movement in terms of legalization and descheduling is because there's money to be made. And money, you know, forces political change. Unfortunately, that's
100%.
this world that we live in.
Money makes the world go round.
Yeah, but you know, I personally, I would love to see if there was a certain tax or something, you know, so that we still do preserve some of these, you know, smaller economies that are popping up in all of these different states with their own cannabis systems. But like New Mexico is primed pretty well for interstate commerce. We've got one of the best resources you can get, the sun. And producers that are able to, you know, really utilize that through like glasshouse production, outdoor production, cheap cost of production, you know, will definitely stand to make some waves if that does happen. But with the caveat that that's a pretty scary prospect down the line.
It is, because last week I actually realized that if we get Schedule 3, and I say if because it's hopeful that we don't get Schedule 3, we get on scheduling. But there's a way things are and a way things should be. If Schedule 3 happens, realize that we're going to end up with two different industries. We're going to end up with the 280E industry, and then we'll have the Schedule 3 industry. Even if a state decides to go Schedule 3 only, there's going to be that transitional phase where we have to go from one to the other. So either way, we're going to end up with two, and it's going to be weird for a little bit. Because that transitional phase. And to be honest, there's going to be certain states that are going to say, well, we don't want to go full Schedule 3. You know, some people can't afford it, or you know, whatever reason. We're going to keep two.
There's also, you know, very likely if there is going to be interstate commerce, there's going to be much higher restrictions and regulations on, you know, how you operate your facility.
Testing.
Testing, cleanliness standards. Oh God, testing. Don't get me started on that.
Federal testing is going to be crazy.
just standardized testing in a state.
You're right. You're true.
Like people are using multiple different methods for testing cannabis and all calling it the same.
Standardization we need in testing,
but
100%.
No, but you know, specifically coming back to New Mexico, you know, I feel like, and especially what we're seeing down here in like Cruces and Sunland Park is like having more of these kind of like cannabis destinations. Like, you know, I feel like Sunland Park is on the cusp of something really cool and really different.
That's why it's called Little Dubai.
Little Dubai. Move over your tongue, your little Amsterdam.
It's Little Dubai.
But no, man, I think that you know, we're gonna see more kind of because New Mexico is good at this of, you know, finding creative ways to attract tourism. Is having it be a hub where people can go to the cannabis movie theater and people can go through the consumption lounges and go to the cannabis hotel and you know, have it be more of a space that really celebrates cannabis. And you know, something that I hope to be working with more people like yourself on is hosting more events, hosting more of these cannabis friendly events, man. We've got a good few of them out here, but I think we can do better. I think we can have a lot of fun with it.
I think so too. And with a couple of law changes, a couple of tweaks, that's really all it needs. We can have cells there, you know, eventually. And, you know, I think the culture here will show the rest of the nation how to really do it.
Man, and that's like, I think that's the culture. You know, the New Mexico culture is what really makes the cannabis scene and market here so special.
I think so.
And it's also like, we don't have that many residents, but we still have high sales in cannabis.
Yeah.
People love their weed in New Mexico.
Yeah, they do. We beat New York in sales.
Oh yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there's a lot of money to be made. I mean, within 60 miles of Las Cruces, within a radius, there's 0.3 million people.
Yeah.
Which is more than the state of New Mexico.
Yeah.
So we're just settled in a really great place for a few years at least. Once Texas goes online, things may change.
Well, we'll see what happens with Texas.
Yeah, see how they go about it.
Who knows where that goes?
That's a coin flip.
Yep.
So but anyway, I mean, I really appreciate the conversation and everything on this, because I mean, I really wanted to have your point of view on it and to have others hear your point of view, because you come from a different market. And a lot of people are stuck on this New Mexico market. Oh, we have this issue. We have this. Oh, we're this and this. I'm like, we're actually doing really good, guys, compared to like other states. Like, Denver's oversaturated for whatever reason, probably because they allow local jurisdictions to ban cannabis. Oregon's still kind of oversaturated too. They're still dealing with their issues. And these are states that have been illegal for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So our little us with since 2021, doing as good as we are. I mean, that's something good to just hear and say, because
absolutely, man.
We opened the doors for really local people who didn't have a lot of funds.
Well, the other thing is that we don't have that many like massive productions here in New Mexico. We have a lot of smaller productions.
Yes.
And like we got a lot of micro producers in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And like there are a lot of those micro producers, man. You can taste, you can feel that love and craft in that product.
Exactly.
And that's the cool thing, and that's where it's like similar to like the craft beer industry.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be a place for the small producers in cannabis.
Yeah.
That small boutique product.
I agree, because even Canada is starting to see a trend where the big 100,000 foot grows, they're going out of business because they can't make it. The consumer base is changing.
And here's the thing, man. There's always going to be connoisseurs that are looking for the top tier product. And like, you can grow some really good weed at scale, but there's not a whole lot of MSOs that are.
Yeah, exactly. Not doing it right either.
Yeah, I can tell you, man, like, go to a dispensary in Pennsylvania, and it's going to be hard to find some really, really grade A cannabis. Like, you can find it at a lot of shops out here.
Yeah.
So
even in Washington, sometimes it's a hit or miss. I mean, I'm Fat Panda. I'm sure you know who they are.
Yep.
One of my favorite producers out in Washington. However, I've had some really terrible cannabis in Washington as well too. So it goes both ways.
Runs the gamut, man. Runs the gamut.
Takes everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So, but anyway, this has been great. But I am ready to move on. Let's talk about growing. We keep jumping back to it, but let's just do it. Let's address the elephant in the room. So let's talk growing. So like you said, you've been to all kinds of grows all over the state and pretty much all over the nation for the most part. Because I'm sure they send you other places too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Missouri, Mississippi, some of the newer markets. Minnesota, I'll be doing a good bit of traveling to this year. But it's also like, I talk with people in New York, talk with people in Oklahoma. It's, we don't have really set regions. We're trying to be helpful and support people that, are reaching out, and that,
Yeah, nice. I mean, that's good to see and hear, because, like there's a lot of places like, oh yeah, just do this and this. But you guys are like, no, we're going to be down on ground zero. I mean, I see you at events, with the pop-ups and everything.
I try to make it to every event I can.
Yeah. I saw you getting down, and I got the recording.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You got so down you fell.
Down on the ground. Yeah, exactly.
Got so down to the ground. I'm so glad I got that video.
That was
a pretty good one.
Yeah, you can run that in the credits, right?
I should. I'll get to Gina, stick it right in the credits. Just I'll get you the video. It's funny, you'll laugh. So what are some trends that you see, like growing style here in the state, and actually, as I think about it, nationwide? What are some trends that you're seeing?
Trends that I'm seeing. That's interesting, man. So, I'm seeing kind of the divergence of end product is I would say that there's kind of two camps that cultivations end up kind of pivoting off to. Is one is low cost of production. How can we grow this plant as inexpensively as possible? We might not still, we're definitely still not going to get the same cost per pound. So it might even be sent to extract, but really just going for, like, especially here in New Mexico, like there are a lot of large outdoor cultivators that are going for very simple cultivation methods. Not always the best product. That being said, they're not knock some of the outdoor product that I am seeing from, especially like northern New Mexico.
Really?
Oh yeah, they got good climate for it, man. There's
That's true.
talented cultivators up there. But yeah, I mean, like, what's been interesting to see is like taking a little bit more of like a big ag approach to cannabis. And saying, how can I cut my nutrient costs? How can I cut my IPM costs?
Yeah.
How can I cut my labor costs? And still have like, a decent enough product to come to market.
Yeah.
Now the other camp is, how am I going to grow the best damn weed that I possibly can?
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I really like.
Yeah, I love them.
I really like working with them.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, man. I work with all different styles of cultivation, but and I got a lot of love for people that are taking the big ag approach for sure. It's very smart. And taking cues from other, more mature industries is always a good way to go about it.
True.
And of course, we're also still thinking, how can we keep our cost of production low when producing the best cannabis? But it's a very different game when we're talking about controlled environment, indoor production, or like glass house production.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, of course, there's always going to be the people in the middle, but I would say that those are kind of the two avenues that I see a lot of, people kind of diverting to.
Yeah.
And it's also like, I love to see when someone has their indoor production and their outdoor production. They can have, more SKUs to be able to put out to market.
True. And you have flower last longer throughout the year.
Yeah.
You're not like relying on just one shot.
Yeah. Or it's like, say you have some really good resilient cultivars that are really good washers. Having like, your cheap outdoor for extract, and, keeping your top tier flower strains for your indoor, makes a lot of sense.
Well, it does, so that way you can, just try to capitalize as much as possible, on your return and everything with everything.
Yeah, but it's, dude, we've the New Mexico sun is a force. That's where it's like, we're in a lot of other states, you're always looking for more light when you're trying to use the natural sunlight. And here in the peak of the summer, I mean, you can top upwards of like, 2,700 ppfd on your plants. And so that's where, like, even having to use shade cloth to, shade your plants, especially down south here, is important. But, that sun is a hell of a resource.
It is.
And like, me personally, I also have a lot of love for like glass house and greenhouse production, just because you are able to utilize that full spectrum sunlight.
And then, these days with the, LED technology, you can amend a lot of the light if you're not in the right time of year with the LEDs.
Dude, I mean, like, there's many, many different styles of LEDs. And for outfitting greenhouses, what's really cool is utilizing some of these light sensors that will basically dim your lights to maintain, an average light setting that you want over your canopy to measure the mixed light between your LEDs and the sunlight.
So even on a shady day, that's dope.
Yeah, and so like what I would do is like I would basically, so say I'm speccing out some supplemental lighting for a greenhouse, we would basically get the DLI, the daily light integral of the region that greenhouse is set up in. And we would look at that in the wintertime, December, January, the darkest time of the month or darkest time of the year. To say, okay, how much light do we need to supplement at the darkest time of the year to be able to hit, about 40 DLI is a really good point for flowering. And so, that's exactly how we're going to spec, lighting for a supplementally lit greenhouse.
Nice.
But you're not even going to run those lights in the summertime. If anything, you're running shade cloth up top.
That's true. Homie out Silver City, shout out to High Lonesome. He does that.
Totally.
He's outdoor and he has a hoop house.
Oh yeah, dude, Jeffrey's great. I've checked his grow out. It's sweet.
He's a cool cat. And he's growing some good stuff out there, putting some really tasty product out.
He is, man. But once again, it's like Jeffrey's got the love.
Dedication too. I'll be talking to him. Oh, I gotta head home, man. I gotta go, flip the plants.
Always.
So shout out to Jeffrey, good guy. You guys get a chance.
Plants don't take vacation.
No, they don't care. They don't care what we have going on. Doesn't matter if you have a birthday or your kid's being born. That plant is hungry and it is growing. It does not care what you're doing. So you understand all the woes. I've been there too. 2 times a day, 3 times a day, and they're whatever in and out. You have no life.
Pretty much.
But that is the best weed.
But that's also like man, I'm actually glad you brought it up. But it's like that's where automations come into place.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where like, whether you have a state-of-the-art facility or if you have a hoop house, or if you just have an outdoor field, how can we implement as many automations as possible so I can have a fucking weekend.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I can curse.
Oh, you can cuss all the
All right, cool.
Yeah.
No, it's, how can we implement strategies so that, of course, we got Johnny from down the road that's checking in on the plants, when we're taking the wife out, a nice Saturday afternoon. But, what can we do to, have as many facility controls automated so that we can, a lot of these, you got your little app on your phone that you can, monitor this when you're up in Albuquerque or, somewhere else.
Actually, my home grow is automated. Yeah, I have my lights are on Alexa.
There you go.
Yeah, I have
you got an Alexa?
Yeah, I have them on Alexa plug. The lights are on that, so it's precise. So
Yeah.
both lights are on. And then I have an automatic watering system. I found it on Amazon.
Tight.
It goes on a phone app. I can change it, whatever. And it's watering it right now as we have this.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Because I've been trying to kind of do some homegrown like crop steering kind of thing at home. Try my little hand on it. It's hard at home. Because you don't have as great of equipment. As you do in the bigger facilities. Yeah. But it's still feasible for the most part.
Sure. Yeah, and that's, I also have it's the only way. I have 4 tents at home, and it's the only way that I can actually manage those when I'm on the road every other week. A lot of automations.
Me too. With these town halls I've been doing on Fridays, I have to ensure the bucket's full.
Yep, exactly.
Before I leave, and then if not, it's fucked.
It's also calling my girl, being like, "Babe, what the fuck is going on in the garage?"
I'm looking at the numbers. Oh my god!
Exactly. You told me you wanted it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Automation is kind of the way that I would say it is the way the industry is going. Yeah. And if you're not thinking about already actively going towards or wanting to do automation, you're kind of behind. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you're the 20,000 grow or 200 plants. Automation is going to make your life easier, more accurate.
And I think that you kind of nailed it there with trying to do crop steering at home or something like that. If you're hand watering, if you're using a pitcher, that's going to be very hard to dial in. There are the cultivators that are hand water or die, and I'm not going to knock them, man. Some of them are growing great weed. Yeah. But it's just it's a lot more labor that you have to put in.
Yeah.
But if you're able to have a precision pressure compensating emitter and a drip system, say I have a half-gallon emitter, 2 emitters in each pot, then I can know exactly how much I'm feeding each plant. And I can really dial that strategy in per cultivar to really get exactly the irrigation style that I want.
Yeah.
So not only is it saving you time, but you're able to get to that precise level of control that you just can't quite do as a human.
I noticed there's less runoff. I have significantly less runoff. When I used to water by hand, there'd be a bunch of runoff in there. It's hard to judge, like how much to really put in there. Yeah. But with this, it's to capacity essentially, and then boop, it's good to go.
Nice.
And then you get the dry back point and all that good stuff. And,
sure.
all that jazz. And if you guys, I don't know, should we talk about crop steering a little bit? You're more keen on it than I.
I'll give you my 2 cents.
Yeah. So go ahead.
All right. So what I typically say is, look, crop steering is dialing in the last 5 to 10% of your cultivation, but you need to be at 90 to 95%. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just giving yourself more headaches, and you're giving you're riding the razor edge. Yeah. The whole point of crop steering is to basically elicit responses in the plant by simulating certain conditions. So, the thing that most people will think about is irrigation strategy around flower and trying to really achieve the proper dryback to basically simulate drought in that plant.
Can you explain dryback really fast for the people who don't know?
Sure. So basically it's, say I water, let's say simple irrigation strategy, I water, once in the morning.
Yeah.
And then, however much that pot, over the course of that day, that plant's going to continue to transpire. It's going to continue to take up the water, the nutrient solution that you have in the pot. You really want to hit, the whole point of crop steering is you hit a certain percentage of dryback. Like I said, to simulate drought conditions so that plant goes through its stress response, which in this case is bulking larger flowers, potentially larger resin development. But it's hard because it's, if you go too far, then that plant might be wilting. And now you've stressed your plant too far, and it's not gonna be able to bounce back from that as easily.
Yeah.
So what I would typically say for most cultivations is, look, if you don't feel like you have your game mastered and there's still things that you're trying to improve. Don't even think about crop steering. It's not going to be that big of a change in your production. Focus on the low-hanging fruit. Focus on the easy things.
Okay.
Focus on dialing in your environmental conditions. Get CO2 into your grow. Check your light levels. Manage your irrigation strategy well.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen many tests of cultivators, trying to do these crazy, multi-pulse irrigation where they'll feed, 25 shots throughout the day, at various stages. I think a lot of us have probably seen the P1, P2 charts where you basically are slowly increasing that water content within the media, and then you're maintaining, and then you hit that dry back over from that final feed event overnight to hit exactly that dry back that you want. But if we don't have a dialed irrigation system and we don't have proper sensors to measure that moisture content, it's a challenge.
It is. It's pricey.
And it can be, yeah. And I would say let's focus on other strategies, and we can get by. You can even, do a little attempt with crop steering with just, 1, 2, 3 feed events throughout the day. Do I like the multi-pulse irrigation strategies with a well-draining media? Yeah. Dude, we got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. You have a lot more smaller things to fix and get better at before you can go to something more advanced.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's and I just have seen a good few too many people that have too many issues with it. Of trying to get those gains. Because the other thing that we're doing is we're also stacking we're talking hydroponics.
Well, let's show the plant. He brought a plant for us to show today, actually. So here we go. This beautiful grow. Perfect in between us.
And so basically what you're doing, what we're also doing is you mentioned runoff.
Yeah.
So we want to balance our runoff in irrigating, so that we have enough runoff that, once again, we're talking hydroponic systems here. We're talking
not like living soil or anything like that.
Nutrients, where we're basically trying to concentrate the salts within the media to just the right point. And so that's where we do want runoff. So most typically the way that I'll strategize is we'd run a slightly higher feed. We'd shoot for maybe 10, maybe 15% runoff off of each feed daily, and then allow it to dry back after that runoff stage. That little bit of runoff will cleanse some of the salts that are built up in the media. But we want to, basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to, maybe say our source feed is like a 3.0 EC. We want to build, through those dry backs, you start to concentrate the salts in the media, and you can get it upwards of 5, 6, 7. I've seen some cultivators take it up to 12 EC in the media.
Holy crap.
Now that's high feeding cultivars, and that's high light conditions, high CO2. When we're increasing one piece of the puzzle, we got to increase it all. So it's if you're trying to push that much nutrition, that plant needs high light conditions to be transpiring fast. It needs high CO2. All the pieces of photosynthesis need to be right there. Yeah.
And one thing I just remembered too is there's certain parts of the state, we have a water issue where you can't do runoffs. So some people just literally can't do crop steering just for that fact.
Well, so what you would do in that instance, if you can't achieve runoff, you can still steer if you wanted to, but we would go for a slightly lower feed. Instead of that 3.0 EC, maybe we'd be feeding around like a 2.0, maybe even a 1.7.
There we go.
And so, we are still stacking that media, but we're not stacking as much because we have a slightly lower input feed.
Okay.
Now, the biggest thing that I'm going to say, Chad, is any cultivator that's trying to dial in their hydroponic irrigation strategy is don't ever do this blind. You don't want to just throw this strategy at your plant. You always need to be taking readings.
Yeah.
And your best bet is doing runoff sampling.
Yeah.
So get your pot to saturation, to the point where it's a fully saturated media with your feed. And then slowly feed more of your feed on top of it, and gather your leachate, gather your runoff from that plant, which is going to tell you exactly what's going on within your root zone. Test the pH, test the EC. The more and more you stack that EC, the lower the pH is going to drop. And we do want to keep that media within a certain range so that the plant is still able to feed and we're not getting salt toxicity, because that is an easy thing to do when trying to balance the runoff and dryback.
Yeah, and essentially killing your plant.
Yeah.
That's what it leads to.
I think, let's see, I got a little toxicity when I was first. No, she's pretty healthy. All right. I was going to say, if you start to notice the little yellowing tips of your leaves, oftentimes that's kind of your first sense that maybe you're just overfeeding a little bit. When you start to see heavy leaf tip burn, that's when it's, and we start to see other lockout issues, and it might even look like you're not feeding enough, just because that plant has now locked itself out because it is such a high salt content within the media.
So locking out happens in all hydroponics when I've seen, even soils, regular soils, I've seen it. What are some tips that you have to help someone battle, locking out, nutrient lock essentially?
Yeah, well, like I said, runoff sampling.
There you go.
You can do it per plant. You can also do it per table. Just gather your, what I would do is I would have my staff do daily runoff readings on every table. And we had an Excel sheet where we tracked all of this. And through that data, we were able to see exactly how each cultivar fed and knew exactly how to strategize our irrigation per cultivar.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your best bet. The other thing is, we've all had to flush our plants when we get a little too salty.
Yeah.
And it's knowing when to when to flush can be very important.
Sure.
Yeah.
And flushing essentially means just giving it regular water, no nutrients, anything like that. Just regular RO water, whatever water you use. Don't add any nutrients to it. Allow it to flush out all of the nutrients that are inside of it. A lot of us know it that way. Back in the day, a lot of people would take like a gallon, just pour it in there, put it in their tub. Just allow it to flush out that way.
Totally.
That's an old school way. You can do it a little more subtly too, but it's really up to however you feel like doing it. Some people just end up doing it, and just
works. And like I know some cultivators that even do like a weekly flush, which like I don't hate that. If we're stacking our EC properly, it's not a bad call. And what I kind of incorporated into the larger production that I was working at was we would do like a weekly organic drench.
Oh, cool.
Trying to simulate some microbiology within the root zone.
That's exactly what I do.
Some carbon inputs. Because don't get me wrong, man. I've smoked a lot of just straight salt fed weed. That's quite good. Quite good, but I think we're always looking for that je ne sais quoi, that little piece that like you can't quite put a word to it, but like when your weed's got that little extra bit. And utilizing microbiology can be beneficial in many different ways.
Yes.
Stimulating stress responses, in protecting the roots from various pathogens. Like I personally like to go for more of an outcompete than kill model.
Yeah.
And so like I like having, and believe it or not, a lot of these microbes will still live in high saline environments. Within a salt fed system. So.
And for the new growers out there, can we elaborate a little more on the microbes? I mean, it'd be great for them to hear, because I hear a lot of misconceptions on microbials, adding, the teas and really what they do. Because a lot of people are like, oh, feed it this, but it's more microbial.
Chad, we're talking about a whole podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking
real
about
quickly though.
We're talking about a book.
Yeah. So just I guess a Barney breakdown,
sure.
real quick, of like the microbes, because some people are still confused about what they are and really what they do with the plant.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so when we're talking about the microbiology within the soil, there's
animals within animals.
Yeah, so I guess when we're talking about it in a hydroponic grow, I'm not planning on having a wild, diverse, beautiful microbiological system where you have fungi and bacteria and nematodes and amoebas and what we're talking about is slightly more targeted, bacillus strains, trichoderma, and mycorrhizal root inoculants. So a big one that a lot of people will understand is mycorrhizae, which are fungi that basically work symbiotically with plant roots to effectively extend the root network through their hyphae, through their fungal hyphae, and can help can help plants in the wild, through drought stress, through being able to access more nutrients. Also utilizing like rhizobacteria, things like Bacillus subtilis, amyloliquefactions. There's a whole host that can be very beneficial. That will also kind of grow around the root systems, can help outcompete other bad pathogens that might be in the root system.
There we go.
And also sometimes just having that microbiology within your media, causes the plant. It's like us not being exposed to colds and sicknesses. We don't build our immune system, you know?
Yeah.
And so you want that plant to effectively build its own immune system to be more resilient for, greater pathogens. One specific thing that I will say is trichoderma. Various trichoderma strains can be incredibly beneficial for fighting off fusarium and pythium, which are like, what we know as kind of like certain root rots or stem rots. Like if you pull a clone that didn't root and you notice this kind of black inside the stem, would very likely be pythium or fusarium. And that trichoderma, there's different companies with products. I love like BioWorks has Root Shield, which is a really, really good one. Yeah. That oftentimes I will put in pest management schedules for individuals, just for like, drench your clones once, maybe once in veg transplant, and that will inoculate your root zone, and just help ensure that you don't have a lot of those root zone issues that you can get.
Yeah, and to break it down Barney style, the microbe life really helps sustain the plant's root system. It all works together. It's kind of like a I help you, you help me kind of situation.
Symbiosis.
There you go, symbiosis. Thank you. Just for the scientific-y people. No, please. I like having both. I just try to break it down Barney style too for the country guys like myself. And if you guys have noticed, if you've grown cannabis before, the little yellow mushroom that pops out sometimes, that's actually a beneficial one.
Yeah, sulfur mushrooms. Yeah. I mean, typically it just means that you've got a relatively healthy media. If that mushroom can,
And because the reason why I bring it up, a lot of growers end up with that, and then they freak out like, "Oh my god!" And I try to tell them like, "Don't eat it," but it's actually means you have a good little relationship going on in your soil.
Yep, that mushroom is just a fruiting body. The actual organism is the hyphae within your media, and it's not going to infect your bud. You're not going to fail for testing. Don't worry about those little guys. There's plenty of other things to worry about. And mold can be a huge issue in cannabis.
I agree.
As you said, we have the benefit of it's very dry out here. So there's a lot less mold that you see in New Mexico. However, we are high desert. And cultivators that are growing, especially in greenhouses, where it can be very hard to manage your day to night humidity and temperature swings, are very prone to mold. And, you have to come up with very creative, holistic strategies to be able to. The biggest economic devastators for cannabis cultivators. I mean, shit, dude, I lost an entire crop on one of the outdoor runs in Maine after like a week and a half of heavy rain, a couple weeks before harvest. It was gone.
And sometimes here in New Mexico, we get that late October, September rain that could just devastate a whole crop.
What was that last, that was 2022, where it was like a week of rain, first week of October, that screwed a lot of outdoor cultivators.
I remember that. Just people like, oh my God, my plants, and then, bugs and this and that. Well, I guess speaking of, we're on this, and then, we'll wrap it up with the IPM conversation, and then we'll go on to our last, topic. So what do you recommend for IPM, for the home guys, for whoever, what's your favorite go-to for IPM?
Okay. Well, I will first start with saying what I don't like.
Okay.
Which is when I ask cultivation, what do you do for pest management? And they say, oh yeah, we spray this product. Oh shit. And man, it's like so many strategies and so many things, but especially integrated pest management, IPM, it's taking holistic strategies. It's, using every tool that we can to, for one, keep the grow clean, not have these issues spread. That's our best tool in the toolbox, our cultural controls and our physical controls. If we're getting clones in, if we are, bringing in new genetics, anything coming into the facility, even just your employees walking into the facility, it's new genetics get quarantined for several weeks in a tent or a separate environment so that you can inspect, you can see if anything arises. You are testing anything that comes into the facility. Like I often travel with a, it's an amplification device that can test for hop latent viroid, Fusarium, Pythium, a lot of major viruses and viroids. And I do often recommend if practice safe sex. If you don't know where your partner's been, fucking get tested. Like get them tested.
Same thing with the plants.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people do talk about HLV as plant AIDS, and in a lot of ways it is, man. It's spreading like wildfire, and it's devastating crops.
It is. I've had it on a couple plants in the past.
And
I didn't even realize it.
And so it's our first step is like quarantine and test. And then from there, it's, sanitation, clean practices, staff that's coming into the facility, make sure that they have their facility clothes, facility shoes. They're not wearing their shit from their home grow into the grow. It's having the right barriers in place so that, things are not moving from the outside into the grow rooms or traveling with your cultivators. Having creative ways to kind of how your staff moves through the grow. When our company brought in their national cultivars, and we had to put right into production. Drips and powdery mildew, but I'll tell you what, man, it was a great learning experience. Because getting a facility of that size clean was a hell of a feat, and we had to get very creative. And so, like, what we would do is heavy scouting, constantly looking through your grow, through your canopy. Utilizing a flashlight for your scouts to be able to really see into the canopy, find signs of insect frass or like insect damage, spots of powdery mildew, and then having heat maps within each of the rooms to basically track, where things arose. We were able to come up with predictive models from all of that data that we gathered. Where we could say, okay, we know that it always gathers along these walls, it always gathers along the front of the room. So then we could say, all right, scouts, that's where you're going to start scouting. We know exactly where it's, arisen, 9 times out of 10 in these last 2 grow rooms. And then from there, it's utilizing, a safe and effective spray program. I'm not going to say that I don't recommend pesticides. Like a lot of the pesticides that we are able to use here in this are OMRI listed. They're very safe. They're biopesticides. And that's where I like working with companies like BioWorks or like Marone Bio, because they have products that are naturally derived, like entomopathogenic fungi. Fungi that infect insects and then will sporulate on the insects, infect other insects.
Oh, that's great.
It. That's metal as fuck.
I mean, it's like in your grow, this like craziness is going on.
It's great. It's great. And like utilizing things like that, or like another product that's like it's basically a toxin created from these spent bacteria that is a stomach poison for a lot of feeding insects. And so applying that to your crop, as the insects feed on the crop, they die as they eat it. But it's completely safe. It's completely safe. And a lot of these products are very safe. I'm not recommending anything that we have to worry about around harvest. I really try to shy away from any of those products which aren't even approved in the state. I mean, don't get me wrong, the state pesticide approval process needs a little work.
Another podcast.
But utilizing, safe products, I like tank mixing products that are compatible so that we can have 3 products with different modes of action all applied in one spray. So maybe you have a suffocant, you have a stomach poison, and you have like a molting inhibitor, all in one spray so that it's less labor. And, we're only having to turn lights off for a certain period of time and yada, yada, yada. But the biggest tool that I would say that a lot of people really need to look into and absolutely consult a consultant like myself or someone that knows is beneficial insects. Beneficial insects are awesome. They are the hardest workers in the garden. And so like typically, the way that my IPM schedules will go is, for one, all of those cultural controls are the first thing we talk about. How we move about the facility, how we bring things into the facility. And then it's, having kind of a good, safe preventative spray program within vegetative state. Keeping your mother and clones clean. That is a safe space. People do not work in flower rooms and go back into mothers and clones because that is the beating heart of the facility. And really relying heavily on those beneficial insects in flower. Where we don't want to apply these products in flower. Once again, they're safe, but still, we don't want that on bud.
Yeah. I don't want to smoke that.
Yeah, and utilizing these beneficial insects, targeted species of insects for the targeted pests that we know are highly prevalent in our area for preventative programs, or using them for very specific uses. Like I was on the phone with a cultivator this morning that has an aphid pressure, and so we're talking about a couple specific sprays in veg, and then utilizing heavy releases of lacewing larvae and hotspots. And so that's all going with it. It's scouting. Where are the hotspots? Where can we find them? Releasing these lacewing larvae on the hotspots, those things are vicious, man. They're like little alligators with their pincers. And sometimes they just kill the aphids for fun. They don't even eat them. They'll eat some, but it's really cool, man. And so, relying on the right beneficials for the specific problems that you could be facing.
So essentially, the way that you break it down is, organics within the soil as much as you can do, with some spray additives. And then in the flower stage, really rely on nature and other predators. Really, essentially. I mean, that's a simple way to put it. And it's
dude, I mean, going back to early days on the biodynamic farm, if we want to go into it, like if we're talking like living soil cultivations and outside, it's like utilizing, growing marigolds outside your greenhouse, having banker plants within your grow, that plants that will attract aphids, so that that's where you look every morning, is your 3 banker plants. And the aphids go, if you have any aphids on those, then you've got them. Utilizing strategies like that, polycultural planting, where you are inviting other. And once again, we're talking outdoor, sustainable. Where you're inviting, other natural predators into the environment, where you'll get natural lacewings that come in.
And you'll get the premanises.
A big piece, and we're talking big, just ag in general, is the monoculture of crops that leaves us susceptible to heavy pest pressures. Because if we have one crop, and that is a juicy, delicious treat for an aphid, then those aphids are going to have a heyday. And it's also cultivar selection. You'll notice that, maybe your berry pink is completely like nothing touches it. They hate it. But your gelato, your gelato 11 is like,
attracted.
They love it. Or powdery mildew is just like covering it. And so it's like, if you have high pest pressures, pull those strains out of production. At least for now. And grow the ones that are resilient. But sorry, I could talk on that.
No, all day.
I will say, Chad, that I do a lot of different work in terms of consulting in the state, but the thing that I probably end up doing the most is integrated pest management, because it's something that, for one, there's not a lot of cannabis specific knowledge on it. It comes out of people like myself who have had to do this time after time after time after time, and have worked with so many different cultivations to come up with these strategies and find what works. But we also have a lot of pest pressures in this state. And the biggest thing that I would say is, like, when you're building out a grow, it's like, consider everything that would go wrong first,
Yeah, exactly.
You got to think about all the worst case scenarios, and how can I build this to help prevent that from happening in the first place.
Redundancy on certain things, because
you got it.
The more you have that, the less issues you're going to run into.
2 or 3 smaller dehumidifiers instead of 1 dehumidifier in a room. So when that 1 dehumidifier fails, and you're totally screwed.
Or it's a backup generator for when the power goes out. Like if you're in an area that that happens here in Cruces, that tends to happen quite a bit. So. But anyway, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the plant talk, and everything. We actually didn't even get to the guide that we had. We just went off the top of the head, and it was a great conversation.
Chad, I think we got a season of episodes ahead of us, brother.
I think so, man. Yeah, we gotta do this again, because we're not even tip of the iceberg right now. We're still barely getting into it with it. Even I'm learning a few things myself, from you. You're very experienced and everything, and you know what you're talking about. So
appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. So we'll have this plant talk grow again, guys.
Maybe we do part 2. We'll do part 2.
We'll do a part 2. That sounds good. We'll have to do it later on this season or something like that. We'll do a part 2. This will be part 1. We'll continue it on. But anyway, we'll move on to our last topic of the day, and then I'll let you guys go, because we're running over an hour now, believe it or not. Jesus. I just wanted to update everybody on the legislative stuff that's going on right now. As you guys know, the legislative body and everything is in session. And it started on Tuesday. At the time of recording, it's Wednesday right now. We release the show on Thursdays now. I just wanted to say before I start, though, I wanted to correct a mistake that I made last week. On the NM Legis website, and you have to look out for this still, if you type in a keyword and it says the legislative session is 2024, keep an eye out. It's still putting you to the 2023 session, and you have to go up to the top and manually change it to 2024. Usually about halfway through the session that changes. I don't know why it's like that, but I mistakenly wasn't paying attention, and I was looking at the 2023 bills. So all the bills that I told you last week were actually from last year. So that was my mistake. I'll take that on the nose and drive on with the mission. But
we'll forgive you, Chad.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. There's only about 6 to 8 bills right now that have cannabis mentioned. 30-day session. They really don't have much time. So we'll see what happens. I mean, filing is until the end of the month, so they still have a little bit more time to put more bills in. So I just wanted to make that caveat there. Apologize for my mistake, but you guys shouldn't be making that mistake too. Make sure look on the dates that it says 2024, not 2023. But yeah, I just wanted to make that known. Anyway, so it's a 30-day session. Also, be cautious where you're getting your legislative information. There's certain meme pages and stuff that are putting all kinds of information out there, and some of them don't really have an understanding of the legislative process themselves, so they're misleading the public, and some of them have an agenda too, so I think they're doing it on purpose. But just be very careful if they're not leaving links or information about the information where they got it from. Be wary. I try to give you guys links and everything like that. I've also had experience in the legislature for 11 years, so I'm not just some like meme page. I do make mistakes, but at the same time, be very careful where the information comes from, because you could be walking down the street mad about something that doesn't even work here. So I'm sure you've seen things like that all the time. Yeah, people are like, well, this and this, and I'm like, that doesn't work here. We don't do that. Yeah. Like if a lot of you don't know, actually here in New Mexico, we don't have ballot initiatives. That's not a thing in New Mexico. The only time that you have ballot initiatives is when it's a state constitution amendment, and then that's a little bit harder to change, so we don't do that very often. So yeah, here in New Mexico, you have to literally go through the legislature. So I'll hear people, well, I'm not going to vote yes for the marijuanas. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that, but okay. So I just want to make you guys clear that, please be very cautious. There's a lot of information that's coming out in a very short amount of time. There's a lot of stuff that changes legislatively from the morning to the afternoon. Something could be different, something could change. I just wanted to give you guys a little heads up of what's going on. There hasn't been any movement right now of any bills, because the first week is really slow up at the legislature. All of the legislators are getting their committees. They're trying to figure out what bills are going where, what committees they need to go to, what time they have to hear what. They're just figuring everything out pretty much the first week. Not really much happens. Actually, the first 2 weeks, really not much happens. So the second week, things finally towards the end of the week start to get moving. So we'll hopefully see something change next week. We'll start to see committees, because I do know that there's a cannabis changes bill that's being put into the legislature, and a couple of other things. Another one would be like the smell. They're going in, but it's not probable cause. I think they're just going in to tighten up some of the language on that. But yeah, I'll read more of the bills as they come out. This week I'm doing the town hall, and I'll tell you guys more about that in a little bit. But it's just been really busy. I haven't had a chance to really read all the bills thoroughly like I wanted to. There's not that many, thank God. But I still haven't had a chance. What do you kind of hope to see from the legislative session this year?
Whew, that's a good point. That's a good question, man. Here's the thing, man. I don't always love enforcement, and I don't always love, more laws and legislation, but there is still a lot of illegal cannabis in New Mexico. There's a lot of product that's coming from Oklahoma. There's a lot of product coming from Oregon. Yeah. And that's just not fair to local cultivators, we don't know what the fuck's on this. We don't know what pesticides were sprayed on this black market cannabis.
Because a lot of the times they send us the shit that failed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's where this is a medicine to people. And we want to know exactly what is in this product that is getting on shelves, that people are using. Of course, people are just getting high, but there's a lot of people that rely on this. And also, there's a lot of livelihoods at stake of these smaller cultivators. And, we just want to make sure that it's a good level playing field and that there aren't people playing dirty,
I agree.
I think that's a big thing that I would like to see.
And that's something that's on the chopping block, I guess, or in the legislative session is one of the bills. They're trying to give the CCD a little bit more power, because they can't even confiscate the cannabis. I've come to find out. Yeah. I guess that was one of the issues. Sometimes we can't even take the weed, if we find if they have too much or whatever. So they're saying that they need more enforcement on that side. They have a hard time shutting certain places down just because they just lack enforcement, and they lack funds. Yeah. So there's certain things that need to change. Hopefully something like that. I really want to read it though. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, man, is that I just want to make sure that the enforcement is funneled in the correct avenues. Yes. And that, it is not something that gets out of control, that we see just them picking on people that are playing ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm afraid of too. Like that. I want enforcement. We need enforcement. Don't get me wrong. This is a legal industry. So that's something that needs to happen. But
well, and we had like 4 regulators for a while.
Yeah,
in New
something
Mexico,
like that.
And how many licenses?
Yeah,
it's like, what the fuck?
It was literally the fucking Wild West for the first year. Like, there was so much shit going on. I was just like, oh my God, that they tried to crack down. It didn't really work, but now they're really starting to, and they have more agents and all that, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully with this law change, if it passes, I don't know. The 30-day session is usually about the budget, as some of you know. But we'll see. The 60-day session, we have more of a chance. However, I feel that if certain bills, non-cannabis related, don't make it, I feel the governor may call a special session to get those through, which gives us another chance to get cannabis through. But it's not a guarantee it'll even be heard. Because usually a special session, it's for a particular law to get passed. 2021, they did that for cannabis. We had a special session, and they did it just to get cannabis passed because it didn't happen in a 60-day session. It was literally a Hail Mary. But we're lucky with the bill we got, actually. So real quick, on the state nmlegis.gov website, I wanted to let you guys know before I forget. On there, you can look up who your representative is, even the congressional House and senators. You can find out who they are. You can find out what district you live in. You can also figure out what bills there are in the legislature right now. You can see where they are. You can see who introduced the bill. It's very transparent. You can also, my favorite, see the webcast. You can watch committee hearings. You can watch floor hearings. You can watch it all. So that's going to be a really good tool for some of you. Like if you want to watch what's happening with the cannabis bills and what's going on, watch the committee hearings, because that you can get exactly bird's eye view of what's going on. Not even a bird's eye view, fly on the wall of what's going on. You get to hear exactly what your legislators that you voted for, what they say. And then come voting time, if you liked it or disliked it, you decide from there. So it's a really good website. It's a really good tool, especially around this time. And if you're in this industry, I hope that you're looking at, these bills and you're looking at what's going on through legislature, because this affects you directly and it affects your pockets in the end, any kind of change like that. So I just want to let you guys know that and every odd year is a 60-day session. As I said before, I know that horse is ashes too, but I get that question a lot. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I had for the session. I just wanted to keep you guys updated and everything, what's going on. First week, nothing really happens. We'll see what happens on the second week. You got anything about the session or anything?
No, that's where I defer to you, brother. That is your realm. I grow the weed. You help pass the legislation.
So. Yeah. I try to grow weed, but I'll keep you guys updated on all the legislative stuff, everything that goes on. As I said, follow my, all my Instagrams, my social. Make sure you follow the Ask Jack Grassy Logic, podcast, and wherever you listen to it on YouTube, you can catch it there. But before we go, a couple of bonus info. As you guys know, I do the industry/town halls. This weekend, we're going to be in Clovis and Hobbs. Clovis, it will be at Nature's Solution, and Hobbs will be at Strained Gardens. I have all those flyers all over my socials and everything. So if you follow me, you should be able to find it. If not, just shoot me a DM. I'll be more than glad to share it with you just to get you there. We want to hear everybody's input from the industry. That means from the bud tender all the way up from the owner of the business to even the guy who takes the pictures. We want ancillary businesses too. Like lighting companies. We want to hear from everybody. As many people as possible to make this industry better, because the information you give us will eventually, hopefully, get turned into a bill, which will be industry driven. It'll be really literally what the industry wants and needs, and it won't be 4 or 5 people picking on cherry picked, to tell us what we need. So this is very important for us to go in the future. Eastern New Mexico is a hot place because of how close it is to Texas. So if you guys could come to these meetings, it would help us a lot. And to be honest, it would help you more than anything, because you guys are in such a unique little area that I really want to hear what you guys have to say in your inputs. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you again for Quality Packaging for sponsoring today's episode. Again, you can find them on Instagram at Quality Customs, customs with a K, or contact Josh at 575-571-6288. And they're just providing cannabis with great packaging, custom boxes, designs, quality made men with quality made products. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. I'll see you next week, tomorrow. Actually, I will see you tomorrow because that's when this episode is going to come out. I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you next week for episode 3. All right, let's get out of here.